When you think of spring, what comes to mind? Maybe it's the daffodils or blossom on trees. Maybe it's lambs in the field or just the lighter mornings.
Well, someone who's got a lot to say about this time of year is the author Michael Morpurgo, who's written a new book. It's called simply Spring, and Michael is with us this morning. Good morning.
Good to be with you.
You brought a ray of sunshine into the studio already this morning. It's nice and bright in here. And talk to me about the book, because it's sort of a strange thing to write about, because it's just something that's there, isn't it? Spring. It's a thing that comes around every year.
It is, but is it a thing we notice enough? I mean, you dawn a morning like this, don't we all wake up and we think, wow, it's fine, it's properly spring now, winter's over, great, great, great. But it is a problem in the sense that we are separated from our seasons. We're mostly an urban society. Well, I'm lucky enough. I've lived in the country most of my life, in the middle of Devon, in the middle of nowhere, which is lovely for a writer. So I'm close, luckily, to the seasons. I see them passing when I'm sitting on my bed, writing. I look out the window. I go for my walks. And when I go for my walks, I go across fields and I go through woods and I go along the river and I see what nature is providing for us, which by and large we don't look at. And I have to say, until I started writing this book, I think I just walked and thought and talked to myself and told sheep my stories. I'm not sure I looked hard enough, but this book made me look again and made me think about what I was seeing. So, for instance, instead of just walking past a tree, which you have to if you walk through a wood, you reach out and touch it. And then you look at the wrinkles on the tree and you realise this is a living creature just like yourself. And I did something once, I'm not sure if it's in the book even, but I stopped and put my arms around this tree, which I know the king, when he was a young man, did, and everyone mocked him for it. He was right. Because what we need to rediscover is our connection to the nature around us. It is what keeps us happy, keeps us sane. And if you are separated from it, from the rhythms of the seasons, and from the trees, and the birds, and the fish in the river, why should our children grow up caring about nature if they don't have a first-hand contact with it? My wife Claire and I have been running this charity for Arms for City Children for some 50 years now. Had 100,000 children to live and work on a farm, deliberately to engage them with what is theirs, the fields and the birds and the agriculture. All of it is all theirs, really. It's their world to look after, and it's my world, and this book made me think about it. And I love that, when it makes you think. You're not just writing, you're thinking.
It made me think about how different my life is to yours, growing up in a city, living in a city, all of those tiny cues that you can see, hear and feel, we don't necessarily have that exposure to in city life, but they are there, aren't they, if we choose to see them?
If you choose, and if you're given the opportunity. It's very important for young children who don't get the opportunity to be given that opportunity. Is as much part of their education as sitting in a classroom and learning how to spell. Yeah. You know, this is rather more important, but don't tell anyone. This is their world. And for them to be connected to it early is just hugely important. I mean, on this walk, for instance, I do every single day, mostly for my health, but also for nature. I mean, I was just walking along, I don't know, 8 months ago or something, and I heard this little sort of plop in the river, as you do as you go along. It's a river called the Torridge in Devon, which does have sea trout and salmon sometimes. And I saw the curve of a salmon going down. Wow. And I thought, whoa, and I just stopped. You
only notice these things if you clear everything else out of your head, then, don't you?
Absolutely.
Do you have to practice that, or is it something that comes naturally to you?
No, they take charge, and that salmon took charge because I stood there, it curved, it disappeared, and it came up again, only it wasn't a salmon, it was an otter. So it was a moment, just a complete moment, where, in a way, the freezing of my body, the being still, meant that the otter came up. And that otter, I promise you, it's in the book, came up 80 times, because I counted. After the first 2 or 3, I said, this otter likes me being there. It was chewing on some sort of prawny thing, chewing away.
Do you think that was a conscious interaction between...
Yeah, I really felt this was a connection. And it is this notion that they are responding to you. I know in lockdown, I get the kale from the garden to make a smoothie every morning. And I'd go in there and a blackbird would be singing at me. And I was used to it. And then one day, I think because of lockdown, there's no one to talk to. So I talked to the blackbird. I whistled back to the blackbird, imitated it. And then the blackbird imitated my imitation. and then the next morning, it was out there waiting for me. I'm not making this stuff up. Nature is connected to us if we choose to be connected to it, but we've got to notice it.
What does it tell us about living in the now? Because I guess seasons, there's always a danger, isn't there? In winter, we want it to be spring. We want the lighter mornings, we want the sunshine, and then in the spring, we're waiting for the summer and the warmer temperatures. We all have a finite number of springs, of summers, of winters, don't we? And, you know, stopping and thinking about it, we're going to have, what, maybe 80 if we're all lucky, 90, 100. We've got to enjoy them while they're here, don't we?
Definitely, and I'm thinking 90, and being 81, I'm thinking 90 would be really rather good. But no, we have to, and I think that's really important, actually, this business of not passing through it and out the other side. However, in this particular spring, I don't even remember spring last year, but I was supposed to be writing this book, and it didn't come.
Oh, yeah.
It just went on and on and on.
False dawns,
yes,
and then,
grey rain. I'm thinking, swallows, please come. Give me something to write about. Bluebells grow, bluebells. And they didn't come, and they didn't come. And I was getting more and more frustrated, almost writing a bit of fiction to start with, trying to encourage them to come. But it does show inside us that darkness of winter. I mean, it is true, more of us do die in winter. And animals die in winter, too. It is the season, really, when we long for the new surge of life in us to wake us up from the sleep of winter, and then in the plants. That's what's wonderful about the trees. You see the buds coming, and you see a new life, and you know that life is surging up the trunk and up through the branches and into the leaves. It's
and you feel your other self coming in, don't you? It's like, oh, right, there I was.
I'm back.
I was in hibernation.
Yeah.
There are 4 books, aren't they? And you got first dibs. You got to choose which season.
Because I was the oldest.
Oh, really? Is that why?
Yeah. Hodder, wonderful publishers, Hodder, decided to do this. It's a wonderful idea. One writer for each book. And
so
then they said, well, you're the oldest.
Yeah.
What do you want? And they asked me in about autumn, I think. And I thought, well, I know there's winter ahead, and I know in winter I'll be longing for spring. So I'll do spring. And it's also because I got lots of grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And there's that thing of connecting the stages of our life. Shakespeare did it in the 7 Ages of Man, this business of being a child and then a teenager. And when you've got little children, very small children, I've got one great-grandchild of 1 year old. And you're 81 and you see it all begin. That's spring. You're seeing spring growing again. And that's the wonderful thing about having children, if we're lucky enough to have them. It's seeing the new season growing. And what am I in now? I'm autumn/winter, I think, probably. And
it sort of helps you accept your passing seasons, doesn't it, when you see that growth?
Yes, and have some sort of notion that that's what happens. I mean, it helps you to come to terms with the fact that this is how life is, you know. We're jolly lucky to have had it as long as we've had it, at least I am, you know.
Lovely. It's a lovely read, and it's made me open my eyes and ears a bit more to spring, even in city life, so thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Nice to see you.
Thank you for inviting.
Thanks so much. That book, it's called Spring, the Story of a Season, and is out now.